This chapter is called Manipulation of Formulae. And this is basically using all of your skills that you've learned in algebra to rearrange formula. Okay, so like here's a formula that we have. Remember Dad's silly triangle? And we used, like we did this earlier in the year, and we had like Dad's silly triangle, and whichever one you were looking for, you covered it. So if you were looking for distance, you covered distance, and then you saw that the formula was speed multiplied by time. And so let's say, okay, hang on, let's go large on this. So if I was looking for what is distance, okay, I'd write distance equals, and then I'd take my finger and I'd cover distance, and then I'd be able to see what's left, which is speed multiplied by time. But then if I wanted a different version of, it's annoying. If I wanted a different version of that, let's say I wanted to know what speed was, then I'd go in and I'd cover speed, so that's covered now with my finger, and you can see that it's distance on the top and time on the bottom, so that would become distance divided by time. Or if I wanted time, I would come in, use my finger to cover time, and you can see that what's left is distance on the top and speed on the bottom. So that is distance divided by speed. Okay, so what I've done there is I've manipulated that formula 3 ways. Okay, the word is manipulated or rearranged. Okay, they're the 2 words. So rearranging or manipulating. So there are 3 different ways I can do that because there are 3 variables in that formula. Now, having a triangle is not going to work for every single formula because some formulas have more than 3 bits to it. So you need, I don't know, a more widespread way of doing it. I don't know what that, like, as in you need something that's going to work for all formula. And the only thing that will work is algebra. Okay, so this is difficult. Okay, so just take it easy with this. Do your best. Try and understand where I'm coming from, because it's not easy. All right. Okay, so we've been given this formula here, which is P plus or S equals Q. And the question says make or the subject of the formula. Okay, so what that means, make or the subject of the formula, that's a bit like what we did earlier when they asked you to solve. We want to isolate or. Okay, we want or on its own. So here's or here. And we want it on its own on one side of the equation with everything else on the other side. Okay, so if I just stick in a little line here just so we're all kind of okay, so we want or to be there. At the moment it's on the left hand side of the equals. We want it to be there but on its own, which means we're going to need to move this S and we're going to need to move this P. Now you move it using the same rules that we learned like at the very start of algebra. It's just obviously instead of moving numbers we're moving letters, which is annoying. Okay, alright, so I want to move the P. I'm going to acknowledge that there's no sign in front of it, which means it's a plus P. So how do I get rid of a plus P? With the opposite of plus. Do you remember this? You use the inverse operation, and the opposite of plus P is minus P. And that will cancel that out. But if I minus P on the left hand side, I'm going to have to minus P over here on the right hand side. Okay, so now I have, you can put the plus if you want, but it's now, because this is gone, it's now a leading plus, so you don't need to put it down. So I have or S equals, now these are clearly different from different families. One is from the Q family and one is from the P family. So I can't add them, so you literally just write them. So it's Q minus P. Okay, so still trying to get that or. And two letters stuck together like that, what's going on between them? They're being multiplied. So that is or multiplied by s. So at the moment, the or is being multiplied by the s. I want to get rid of the s, so I need to do the opposite of multiply, which is divide by s. That will get rid of my s's, but if I divide by s on the left, I'm going to have to divide by s on the right. So now the s's are gone, I've got the or left, and over here I have q minus p over s. So I have manipulated the given equation, or rearranged the given equation, making or the subject, or isolating or. Okay, so the rules, that idea of inverse operations, all that stuff, we learned that in the first couple of videos when we started algebra in chapter 5. Okay, if you have a plus something, you get rid of it with a minus something. If you have a multiplication, you get rid of it with a divide. It's the same. It's just that we're doing it with letters. So let's have a look at another one, and I'm going to leave it at just 2 today, and then we might do another 2 on Wednesday, and then we're done. Okay, so here I have fractions, and quite recently actually in this chapter we learned what to do with fractions. So we can get a common denominator. So a common denominator between 5 and 3 is 15. So I'm going to put a 15 here, then the sign in the middle is an equals, and then I'm going to put a 15 here. Okay? Now, if I go from a 5 to a 15, so that transition there from a 5 to a 15 is being multiplied by 3. So if I have to multiply by 3 on the bottom line, then I have to multiply by 3 on the top line. So I'm going to take A and I'm going to multiply it by 3. Then we look at the bottom line. So on the bottom line, I'm going from a 3 to a 15. So what's going on there? That's multiplied by 5. So I'm going to need to take the top line and multiply it by 5. So we have 5 times b minus 2c. Now, because it's not a plus or a minus, I wouldn't do the merge step, okay? But what I can do, because they're both 15s here, this is probably a bit of a weird step, but if you multiply across by 15, okay? So if I multiply this one by 15 and this side by 15, essentially, just like we've done loads of this cancelling, the 15 will cancel out the 15 and the 15 will cancel out the 15. Okay, and you can't merge because it's not plus or minus. When it's an equals, this is what you do. Okay, so I have a by 3, which is 3a, and the 15 is gone. I have my equals, and then this is going to have to be done distributively. So 5 by b is 5b, and this 5 is positive, so plus by minus, different signs give me minus. 5 by 2 is 10, and then I have a c. Okay, now, I don't think I even talked about what I was looking for. I just saw the fractions and thought, ugh. Okay, and actually that's actually a really good way to think. When you see fractions, think, ugh, I need to get rid of them. Okay, so here, look, we're looking for express c in terms of a and b. So that is another way of saying isolate c. Okay, so let's stick in our line. Okay, so it goes in here. C is here on the right hand side. So we are going to have to get rid of this and get the C all completely on its own. All right, so at the moment that 5b is a plus 5b, so I will get rid of it with a minus 5b, and that will cancel it. If I minus 5b on the right hand side, I'm going to have to minus 5b over here on the left hand side. Okay, so on the right now, the b's are gone, so I have minus 10c. And over here, these are from different families, the a family and the b family, so I can't add them or subtract them, so I just write them. So 3a minus 5b. I'm trying to get the C. So at the moment, the C is being multiplied by a minus 10. So to undo that, I will divide by a minus 10. But if you divide by a minus 10 here, I'll have to divide by a minus 10 over here. So the minus 10 and the minus 10 will cancel. I'm left with the C. And over here, there's nothing you can do. None of them are in the same family, so you just write it down. So now there's that manipulated or rearranged to express C in terms of A and B, or translated to isolate C. Okay, so look, I know how hard these are. Take down the notes. I've given you 4 here for homework. Okay, it says express the variable in the square brackets. So the thing that's out here in the square bracket, that's what you need to isolate. Okay, so there's 4 there to practice. Unfortunately, unlike long division, there's no way of checking if you're right. So I'll obviously give you the solutions on Wednesday, and then we might try 1 or 2 more of the same, just so you get a couple more examples, and then we're done. That's chapter 9 completed. And you can let me know if you want to do a live class or whatever for any questions. Okay, we might set up a live class Thursday or Friday. All right, so good luck with that homework.